Hi guys, and welcome to more CrossFit Resolve Mobility at Home. Tom has kindly donated his time, so we've got a professional actor doing yoga and mobility with us today. I'm going to mainly be out of the scene just so you guys don't have to see my ugly mug the whole time that we continue to do classes for you at home. Again, the focus will be just about moving the whole body, aiming for that 35-minute time cap, so not trying to exceed past that, so it's sort of manageable for you guys to do at home when you're quarantined and don't have anything else to do. And once again, if you've got any special requests or there's specific body muscles that you want to work on, please just drop some comments or send me a text or whatever's good for you. So as always, we'll start on our back. So if you've got a bolster at home, you can use a bolster and lay over the bolster. Good job, Tom. If you don't have a bolster, once again, just thinking about what do you have at home that you can utilise for props. So pillows off of your bed, cushions off of the lounge, whatever's comfortable. Just keeping the bottom on the ground, laying up and over the bolster, and we generally start with the soles of the feet together just so we can move into hip flexors. Hip flexors are often obviously tight for people who do CrossFit or any sort of activity, so we're just trying to stretch your hip flexors. If it's uncomfortable having the soles of the feet together, one, you should probably stretch more often, and two, of course, you can start with the feet further away from the body. So closer they are in towards the groin, the more challenging the stretch is, and then if further away they are, the easier it becomes. So as we lay here, just coming back to that deep, elongated breath, so thinking about perhaps inhaling for 4, exhaling for 6. And the reason why we start with that long breath is twofold. One, so we can sort of come to our mat and set the intention to stretch and not be thinking about your shopping list or COVID-19 in this case, or whatever else is going on in your life. And the second thing is, as we extend the breath, we move out of our sympathetic nervous system into our parasympathetic nervous system. So we can't produce our happy hormones at the same time that our stress hormones are firing. So we're thinking adrenaline and cortisol. So when we flip to our happy hormone and to our parasympathetic nervous system, we naturally feel calmer, relaxed, and that's when our muscle fibers start to heal. And I talked about this in our first mobility class. So just taking another 5 rounds of breath here. Of course, at any point, if you're doing this on a laptop and you think, no, Maddie, I want to stay here longer, you can just press pause on me, do this until you're ready, and then carry on with class. It's completely up to you. Or when we finish, you can come back to this pose and spend another 5 or 10 minutes here just unwinding from your day, your week, your year. So you'll notice for those who haven't done mobility with me before that we always start with the first poses being the same. So we start with a reclining butterfly pose, which is this one. And again, you can do it completely flat on your back if that's more comfortable for you. And then we move into a twist. I do change the twist, but it's really important. Our spine moves in 4 different directions, and it's important to hit those directions, which we do in each and every class as well. So if you're over a bolster, just taking a moment now over the next few breaths just to remove the bolster from behind you. So you can roll to one side and remove it, sit up and take it away, whatever feels good for you. It doesn't matter to me what you do. And then we draw the knees into the chest to give ourselves a squeeze. Some people like to take the nose to the knees. I wouldn't recommend that if you've got a sore neck or neck issues. Tom obviously doesn't, and it is quite relaxing for the cervical spine to come into that tight ball. And then today we're going to come into our cafe, I call it the Cafe de la Twist. So we're going to ground the feet and just take the right ankle over the left like we were crossing our legs. So all the way down, Tom. And then we're just going to drop the knees now to the right. Beautiful. And just making, as Tom's done, we're just taking the arms out nice and wide to a comfortable position. And essentially what we're doing here is we're pinning the hips down, pinning that one hip down with the foot that's on top as we move through some spinal rotation. So flexion and extension, so forward and back, rotation and lateral rotation are the 4 movements that the spinal column move in, and it's important for our spinal health that we take ourselves into those different directions each day. Particularly for people who sit at a desk, if you've already got some injury, those sorts of things, it's really ideal to try and take your spine into those movements. Of course, if this is too much for you, if this is too much for your ITB, if it's too much for the hips, if it's hurting your back, you could just uncross the legs and just drop both knees to the side, much like we did in our first class, so just a variation of a twist, if you will. Otherwise, we're going to have another 5 to 8 breaths here, so I'm going to leave you in peace for a moment while you just take that slow, methodical breathing, thinking about that inhale for 4, exhale for 6, or even slower if you can, so maybe inhale for 6, exhale for 8. Just coming to our last 2 breaths here. Trying to maintain inhale, exhale through the nose. So we increase lung capacity when we don't utilise the mouth. So try to always inhale, exhale through the nose. And then we're simply coming to centre, uncrossing the legs from that direction and crossing them the opposite way. If you need to have a knees into the chest in between, you could do that as well. Just being a little bit intuitive with your mobility, your stretching, your practice. And then when we're ready, we're taking the left over the right, and this time dropping the knees over to the left. It's the same pose, just on the opposite side. If you can, try to keep the shoulders grounded as much as possible. And you can use your props in whatever way feels good for you. So if having the knees to the side, if this was a bit strong for you, you could take your bolster or your pillows or your cushions under the knee. I always say in our yoga classes that there is no RxD, so you don't need to be too concerned about trying to extend to the maximum of the pose. It's just simply about finding what works for you. You know, CrossFitter bodies are quite tight, so sometimes you just need to soften off a little bit when it comes to our stretching. And if your mind is racing or you're having trouble just being still, which for a lot of people is a struggle, particularly at the moment with anxiety levels up and people worried about obviously their jobs, their income, working from home, the virus, those sorts of things. Now is a wonderful time, if you haven't already started, to think about using the breath as a meditation. And even if you don't like the concept of meditation, think about it just as using the breath to give your mind some space or a little bit of quiet time. And we'll do that now, once again, for our next 5 to 8 breaths on this side. So just taking our last 2 breaths here. And once again, we're coming back onto our backs, uncrossing the legs, drawing the knees into the chest one more time, and again, choosing whether or not you take the nose to the knees or just remaining flat. And then when you're ready, we're going to rock ourselves all the way up to seat. We're going to come into a lunging sequence. So you're going to this time definitely need either a bolster if you've got one, or some pillows, or again cushions, rolled up blankets, whatever you have. A block or a brick or a pile of books or textbooks. So we're going to come into a lunging sequence to hit our, once again, hip flexors and also hit our hamstrings. So from hands and knees, we're going to step that left foot all the way forward into, much like our gecko pose that we do in our warm-up at the beginning of class. We're going to have a few breaths here just to hit the hip flexors. Try to actively draw that left knee in towards the shoulder to begin with, so that we've got that isometric contraction. Knee draws into the shoulder. And take another 2 breaths here. So we're trying to get the most out of our pose by sending the hips forward and down. So think about trying to get your pelvis as close to the ground as you can. And again, we're not aiming to injure ourselves, obviously. There's no RxD once again, but it's just about finding comfort in the discomfort. And that's the very idea behind mobility and stretching when we're aiming to increase flexibility or increase range of movement through our joints. And then from here, we're going to come into a bit of a flow before we hold our hamstrings. So we're going to exhale, take the bottom back towards the heel, turn the toes to the ceiling, and see if you can bow forward over that left leg, just as much as you can. So if you can straighten the leg, straighten the leg. If you can't, that's okay. Be mindful, obviously, of your kneecaps. And we're going to combine these 2 movements now for a couple of rounds. So as you inhale, we're going to come forward into our gecko pose, where we've just started. And then exhale, we're flowing back into our hamstring. Once again, inhale, coming forward. And this is in a moment where you're going to need your bolster or your pillows or your cushions, whatever it is that you've got for props. So this time as we exhale and come back, we're going to see if we can take our bottom onto that bolster. So we're sitting almost on our back heel, or as closest to the back heel as we can, so we can bow forward. So we're pinning the knee down, so we're getting quad on that right leg with that knee in complete flexion. And then we're bowing forward as much as we can to hit hamstring on the left. And people like Tom, who do a lot of running and exercise, have tight hamstrings, as a lot of us do. So this is key here to focus on the breath. We're not going to hold as long as we did with our twists and those other things. If it becomes too much, come out of the pose, have a couple breaths, and see if you can come back into the pose. What's key here is that we're stretching through the hamstring, a little bit of quad, but we're doing so without injuring ourselves. So if we can, let's have 5 more breaths here. Beautiful, and let's inhale, come all the way forward. And your choice here, if you can come up to a down dog, you could come up to a down dog and press both of the heels back. If it's easier for a runner's lunge, if you've got issues with your wrists, you can come into a runner's lunge. As Tom's doing, we're just cycling the heels, increasing that blood flow back through those big leg muscles. And then from here, either stepping that right leg all the way forward or coming to hands and knees, whatever's easier for you. And we're doing the same flow. So we're coming to that gecko pose. Tom's taking his hands to the inside of that right leg, trying to draw the knee in towards the shoulder to begin with, maintaining that contraction, sinking the pelvis as far forward as you can. just really work with the breath as you exhale. If there's opportunity for more depth, you could take more depth. If there's not, that's perfectly okay. Once again, it's not about injuring ourselves, but just finding that depth where we can find comfort in the discomfort. And then getting ready for our flow now. So let's exhale, take the bottom back towards the heels as we turn that the right toes to the ceiling, so straightening through that left leg. Remember, we're just moving in a bit of a flow here. So we inhale, come forward, back to our gecko pose, and that's just about preparing the body to hold the hamstring. You'll probably find that the gecko pose here is a little bit easier than the hamstring, and that's why we warm it up this way. And then exhale, coming back. Inhale, coming forward. And then as we exhale, we're going to come back, finding your props and setting up on the other side. So we're pinning that knee down once again. We're hitting complete flexion through that front quad, the left quad, and then the right leg we're aiming for that hamstring flexibility, mobility. You'll notice that Tom can reach his toes, but if you were tighter again and you couldn't reach the toes, you could use a belt, you could use a strap, a skipping rope, whatever you've got at home just to anchor around the front foot. If you've got a yoga mat, even the yoga strap that comes around your mat, that's often nice as a makeshift prop. We've got about another 5 breaths here, 3 to 5 breaths. Noticing when we're doing our mobility class, if you have differences between the left and the right, that gives us a lot of information for our exercise as well. How we sit, do we always sit and cross the one leg at our desk? Do we push off harder out of the right heel out of the base of our squat, for example? And it just gives us that little bit of knowledge that we can then work on our form, both in our daily activities, our stretching, but also in our exercise as well. So let's once again inhale, come forward, and doing what you did on the other side. So if that's a down dog, we'll hit another down dog. If that's a runner's lunge, taking the opposite leg back. It's nice to cycle the heels, get a little bit of calf work in there as well. Beautiful. And we're going to target the hips a little bit more now, using a tennis ball if you've got one at home, or anything that's sort of round, if you've got a trigger ball, anything like that that you can place in under the buttock. So we're going to come to sit on our bottoms and come to our seated pigeon. So we're starting with the left foot forward, and that right foot comes behind the left knee. Beautiful. So this is the same as our pigeon that we do laying down, we're just seated. Take a couple of breaths just to feel into the pose. The closer the left foot is in towards the body, the deeper the stretch is. So if you're quite tight, you may need to take that left foot further away. And then hopefully you're doing the same side as me, but whichever foot is in the pigeon, so for Tom it's his right, we're going to now take that tennis ball under the right buttock, and we're going to start to use the ball as a trigger point release. So starting mid glute, wherever feels nice for you, you can see that Tom's lifted his buttock, place the ball there. Some people like to do this laying down, so if you're playing along at home, Lee, I know that's what your preference is. If you're doing this for a long time, the arms do get a little bit sore, particularly if you're putting a lot of weight in them. Normally that's when you're avoiding the ball. But you can either be idle as Tom is, or taking some gentle movement. You can almost roll, move the bottom in small circles, which is nice as well. If you find somewhere that's particularly tight, put some more weight into it, so drop your weight into the ball. Yes, it's uncomfortable. It's like if you have a massage with Letitia and she finds somewhere that's quite tight and she sinks her elbow in, like all good massage therapists do. Hey, Tish. And then once you then continue to massage, you're bringing fresh blood and oxygen into that area that's got holding the tension. So that's why we hold and then release. At some point, and I know you won't want to, but at some point if you could, for Tom, he's going to drop his right knee over towards me, and that way we get a little bit more of our piriformis. So I saw Tom take a bit of a gasp and some deeper breaths there. So the piriformis is a small muscle that's, to be honest, always tight. So if you can have some breaths in the piriformis, little circles, do that. Even if it's just for a moment, a couple of breaths. One of my original Ashtanga, so a style of yoga teachers used to say to me that when we want to exit the pose, that's when the pose truly begins. And I think the same is for stretching. So when it's really tight, we often avoid it, and that's obviously what we need to stretch more. So let's just have a couple more breaths here. So if you've been hitting piriformis, just roll around the whole glute now. So we'll just release. Once again, I'm keeping these classes short, so you could come to this at the end, or pause me if you wanted to do longer, or pause Tom in this case. And those who are regular to stretching and mobility will know that our more traditional pigeon, when we're coming forward, if you've only got a few minutes in your day, say you've got 5 minutes, pigeon is the best pose to do every day, each side every day, aiming for 5 minutes. And when clients have said to me over the years, I don't have time, if you do social media, if you read the paper, if you read a book, if you watch the news, if you help your kids with their homework, they're all times that you could be doing pigeon quite easily. So how about we change sides now? So we're going to gently release, and we're simply going to set up the other side. So in this case, once Tom feels like he's stretched out, so take whatever you need in between. That's always important as well. Don't rush in. It's really easy with being online because you can just press pause and then come back. And then we're going to come to our left side. So left foot behind the right knee. Don't expect the hips to be the same. Hips are renowned for one being significantly more flexible than the other. Have a couple of breaths just to ease into the pose, into the stretch. And then we'll take that tennis ball, that trigger ball, or whatever it is that you've got at home that you're playing along with, under that left buttock or under the side where the foot is behind the knee, so the pigeon side. And just repeat, guys, same thing. So little circles, find an area that's tight. If you've got somewhere that's tight, put a bit more weight behind it, so release your hold, heavier onto the ball. Spend some time there. You're in complete control of this. It's like the stretching versions of those books we all had as kids where you get to page 7 and it says go to page 13 or go to page 42. So you get to choose your own ending for your mobility. Obviously the more dedicated you are, the greater your performance as an athlete will become, and the less pain you will have in your day-to-day functioning. I know that Bro said to me he's been coming consistently now twice a week, and he's commented how more free his muscles are in terms of mobility and how that's impacting on his performance in a positive way. So I think if Bro can do it, we can all do it. He's as busy as the rest of us and he still manages to do mobility twice a week. And just remember that we want to hit that piriformis as well, so dropping the knee away from the midline of your body, so away from your belly button, finding that tiny little piriformis muscle. And just being gentle with yourself here is, as I've said, often very tight, so using the breath to help release the muscles. As your egg fails, see if you can go a little deeper in the pose if there's space. If there's not, just stay as you are. But continue to breathe. Try not to hold your breath, particularly for the typho muscle. Just got a couple of last breaths here, so if you're wanting to roll around the rest of the glute, if you're wanting to press pause, if you did so on the opposite side and spend a bit longer here, that's completely okay as well. Alright guys, I'm gently releasing there. We're going to hit a pose for our shoulders before we look to finish up very soon. So, if you can, we're going to take both arms behind our backs, holding on to opposite elbows. If you can't do this, and our goal is to lay down, if you can't do two at a time, feel free to do one arm at a time and then halfway through change. So it could be that you press pause and do the other side and then rejoin us. But if Tom can, we're going to see if we can lay down completely flat with the arms pinned. So this is, for some of us who have mobile shoulders, you won't feel a lot here. For some people, this can be quite intense. So you'll notice on Tom's that his shoulders are quite high. So when I do this pose, my shoulders come completely flat. So that's the difference in that mobility through our shoulder girdle, rotator cuff, etc. So just be kind to yourself. If you have a dumbbell or a kettlebell, you can do this at home one side and then the other. So the side that's tucked behind, so say for example you're just doing the left, holding a kettlebell with your right hand over the left shoulder to help drive that shoulder back is a fantastic pose. You could obviously utilize anything if you've got some spare bricks laying around. Obviously we don't want something that's excessive. So I wouldn't say to go more than 10 kilos. The tighter your shoulders are, the less weight I would use. So I think the last time I taught this at class, and I could be very wrong, but I think Lee used a 12 kilo kettlebell and that was perfect. Coming back to that breath. Let's see if we can aim for another 5 breaths here. Alright, and we're getting ready to come out of this pose, so just be really mindful, particularly those with tighter shoulders. I find the easiest way to release is to use the core to sit directly up again, but finding what works for you, it could be that you roll to one side or bend the knees and sit yourself up, whatever works for you, just releasing the arms, giving the shoulders a roll. And then we're just going to finish up, guys, with some neck stretches. So finding a comfortable seated position. So cross-legged, if you can sit cross-legged. If that's not comfy for you, you can sit the legs out in front. Just roll the shoulders back and down, trying to set that position so that the shoulders are where they need to be rather than up near our ears. And then we're just simply taking the left ear to the left shoulder. And then inhale through center and taking the right ear to the right shoulder on exhale. Inhale coming through center. Exhale, take the chin to the chest. Try to really draw the head back when you do this. So the first cervical fusion is called the atlas, and what we've seen and seeing through technology is that we are jutting our necks further and further forward, and we've got decay at that atlas level. So tech neck is what it's often referred to as. So really think about, this is one of the times where having multiple chins is good in life. And then just softening the chin, we're going to take our nose to the ceiling, but we're going to hit our scalenes at the same, scalenes that come around the front of the neck at the same time. So we're going to open our mouth, and then as we take the chin to the ceiling, we're going to take our chin past our front teeth, so like we've got an overbite. So we exhale, nose to the ceiling, overbite. So you'll see that the jaw essentially juts forward. You'll feel that stretching down the front of your neck. So really great release for the scalenes. And you can do this a couple of times. You can release, come back to a neutral neck, drawing the head to center. And then when you're ready and you're ready to exhale, do that again. So drop the mouth, extend the jaw, the bottom jaw past the front teeth. Feel that stretch to the front of the neck, quite lovely. And then just gently release. So that's Tom and I done, guys. So thank you, Tom, for his time and talent.
Thank you, Maddie.
We are doing signings, so if you want our autographs, you can just let us know. I'm going to aim to film a couple of times a week, so it'll either just be me if no one's available, or if people are available. Jo has nominated herself, Jo Newman's nominated as well, so hopefully it won't just be my face all the time. But have a great evening. Again, if there's any questions, let me know. See you later. Bye.